Imagine if you could possess an ability that allows you to see through a person's basic character in 5 minutes, understand the motives behind their actions, and predict their possible reactions in a relationship. How many conflicts and disappointments would this save you from in life? It sounds like magic, but this is precisely the ability that the classic book we're diving into today, Understanding Human Nature by Alfred Adler, the founder of individual psychology, aims to grant each of us. Adler believed that understanding others is the foundation of all social relationships. The root cause of the distressing conflicts we have with parents, partners, and colleagues lies in our lack of true understanding of one another. In the time ahead, we'll transform this book into an incredibly powerful manual for interpersonal relationships. We'll focus on Adler's 3 great life challenges: work, social interaction, and love. We'll explore why some people thrive in teams while others remain isolated, why some intimate relationships are nurturing while others resemble endless power struggles. We'll uncover Adler's core concept, social interest. It's not some profound theory, but the ability to cooperate with others and contribute to the common good. Adler argued that the strength of a person's social interest directly determines their level of life satisfaction. If you long to improve your relationships, learn to get along harmoniously with people of different personalities, and ultimately build truly meaningful connections, then this book is the answer you've been searching for. Earlier, we touched on a universal headache: interpersonal relationships. We long to be understood yet constantly misunderstand others. We seem trapped in an invisible web, repeating similar conflicts and disappointments. Why is this? Think for a moment. Have you ever felt like your life is following a predetermined script? In certain situations, you unconsciously say or do things that seem strange even to yourself afterward, as if there's another you inside, acting beyond your control. You're not alone. Because Adler reveals a revolutionary secret: nearly all aspects of our mental life serve a hidden goal. In other words, your life is a drama you've been writing and starring in since childhood. You've just forgotten you're the screenwriter. This might sound abstract, so let's clarify. Adler means that nothing we do is isolated or accidental. Every thought, emotion, and action is like a signpost pointing toward a single, deep-seated goal within us. This goal is your unique answer to the question of how to make your way in the world. Consider a common example: chronic lateness. We all know someone who's always late, no matter the appointment. Ask them why, and they'll offer 1,000 excuses: traffic, a broken alarm, an emergency. But Adler would smile and look past these surface excuses to ask a deeper question: what purpose does lateness serve for them? What is their goal? The goals can vary. Maybe their hidden aim is to feel a sense of superiority by being the center of attention. When they finally arrive, with everyone's eyes on them, they feel important. Or perhaps they want to prove they are above the rules. You mortals adhere to schedules, but they're exempt, a silent declaration of power. Or maybe they are testing a relationship's strength, wondering, how late can I be before you stop waiting, using this to confirm their worth. Notice what happens when we stop asking, what caused them to be late, and start asking, what do they hope to achieve by being late? The entire nature of the issue shifts. We stop fixating on unprovable excuses and begin to grasp the inner logic behind their behavior. Take another example: the colleague who constantly complains about an unappreciative boss, unhelpful co-workers, rigid systems. On the surface, they're a pitiful victim, but from a teleological perspective, their complaints may serve a clever self-protective goal: to preemptively excuse future failures. By incessantly complaining, they ensure themselves. If they botch a project or miss a promotion, they can reasonably tell themselves and others, "See, I told you, no one could succeed in such a terrible environment." Their sense of self-worth is subtly preserved through these complaints. This is what makes Adler's ideas so powerful. Like a surgeon, He precisely cuts through the surface of our actions to reveal the hidden goals driving us from the subconscious. To make this more concrete, consider a fascinating modern phenomenon: social anxiety and social boldness. These behavioral patterns seem polar opposites. One wants to vanish in crowds, the other thrives as the life of the party. We typically attribute this to introversion versus extroversion, but Adler would say it's more than personality. Both are life strategies to achieve the same deep goal: gaining security and avoiding devaluation. Why do socially anxious people fear social situations? Because socializing brings the risk of judgment, comparison, and rejection, unbearable risks for them. Their strategy: if I don't play the game, I can never lose. By withdrawing from crowds, placing themselves in an absolutely safe position, their avoidance protects them from failure. What about socially bold people? They seem confident and crowd-loving, but their strategy is often to take initiative and control the room. They talk constantly, perform, and stay center stage. Why? Because as long as they control the conversation and define the atmosphere and rules, they avoid passive judgment, using dominance to counter fears of being ignored or rejected. One chooses flight, the other fight, two opposite behaviors potentially serving the same hidden goal: maintaining personal security and self-worth. This is the first and most crucial step in understanding human nature, recognizing we are all goal-directed beings. We're not passive puppets pushed by the past, but active artists. All our actions serve the blueprint we hold for our future. The question is, where does this blueprint, this hidden goal, come from? When is it set? What force drives us to pursue it relentlessly, even distorting reality and harming relationships? This brings us to another core of Adler's theory: the most primal, powerful drive within each of us. We'll uncover this secret in the next section. We left off with a question: if life is a drama serving hidden goals, what is the primal, powerful energy driving us to write and perform this script? Adler's answer may surprise you. It's a feeling we all know well: inferiority. I know many wince at inferiority. In everyday language, it sounds like a flaw, a mental illness to overcome. But in Adler's psychological framework, it's the starting point for understanding all human nature, and it's not a bad thing at all. Adler tells us that inferiority is the normal state of all humanity. Why? Simply think about how each of us enters the world as utterly small and helpless infants. In childhood, we're surrounded by giants: parents, siblings, teachers, who seem tall, strong, able to open doors we can't reach, move toys we can't lift, and know things we don't. In our earliest stages, we all exist in a natural state of being less than others, unable to survive independently, dependent on others' help. This primitive sense of being small, powerless, and incomplete is the source of inferiority. Remember, Adler's concept of inferiority isn't pathological self-pity, but rather our deep desire to improve ourselves. Stronger, more complete. Like a car engine, it's the fundamental drive behind our striving for excellence. Without it, human civilization couldn't progress. The key isn't whether you feel inferior, we all do, but how you compensate for it. How powerful is this compensatory force? The book's preface mentions a name we all recognize: Bruce Lee. We remember him as the embodiment of strength, but he wasn't born strong. On the contrary, he was frail as a child with numerous defects, flat feet making heel contact difficult, hence his light toe jumps in films. His signature thumb-to-nose gesture wasn't for show, but due to lifelong rhinitis. His piercing gaze came from severe myopia exceeding 600 degrees. How did someone with so many physical limitations become a human physical marvel? Because these physical inferiorities ignited his supercharged engine for excellence. He didn't merely compensate for his flaws, but transcended them spectacularly, turning weaknesses into unparalleled strengths. This is the immense power of positive compensation for inferiority. showing that life's greatest strength often comes from struggling against our weaknesses. But like all things, when this engine's throttle is pressed too hard or the wheel turned awry, inferiority shifts from positive force to dangerous psychological trap. Adler notes that when inferiority is exaggerated by severe physical defects, childhood mockery, or over-coddling like a greenhouse flower, normal feelings of inferiority can deteriorate into a pathological inferiority complex. Those trapped in an inferiority complex have a distorted drive for superiority. They no longer strive to improve themselves, but seek, at any cost, merely to appear better than others. This twisted compensation abounds in life. Take someone obsessed with luxury logos. They pursue not quality, but the false superiority the logo provides, using expensive symbols to mask inner emptiness and insecurity. Or consider online trolls, finding pleasure in demeaning others. In reality, they may feel utterly powerless, gaining fleeting, false power only by attacking those more successful or happy, numbing their deep-seated inferiority complex. Another common case: those who boast, act arrogant, and appear invincible. They seem self-satisfied, but Adler pierces this illusion. Such exaggerated behavior reveals profound insecurity. Their arrogance is like an overinflated balloon, hiding a weak, timid self inside. Thus, stemming from the same inferiority and striving for superiority, outcomes can lead to heaven or hell. Normal inferiority sparks the hero within. A pathological inferiority complex imprisons us for life. This raises a fundamental question. With this inferiority engine inside us all, with each of us pressing the throttle to escape powerlessness towards something better, what determines our life's direction? What leads some down Bruce Lee's path of creation, while others take the troll's path of destruction? At life's crossroads, what two paths await us? We'll explore this crucial life choice next. So what determines our life's direction? What leads some to heroic self-fulfillment, while others to self-destructive tragedy? Adler tells us that in facing inner inferiority, everyone encounters two clear paths. This choice determines whether you become a builder or destroyer, and your entire character, your personality, is built upon this foundation. Think of life as a large team game. Builders ask, how do we all win together, following a logic of cooperative gain? They know their value comes from contributing to the team, striving to surpass their past selves. They pursue superiority through solving problems, creating value, and helping others. This is the healthy path of Adler's social interest. Destroyers ask, I don't care if the team wins. How do I get MVP? Following a zero-sum, win-lose logic. They see everyone as potential competitors. Others' success threatens them, others' brilliance stings their eyes. They seek not shared victory, but personal, absolute superiority over others. Unfortunately, most of us are encouraged, even forced, down this second path while growing up. On the destroyer's path, two primary combat styles emerge: aggressive attackers and passive withdrawers. First, aggressive players. Their arsenal includes destructive traits like vanity and ambition. Adler says excessive vanity disconnects people from reality. They no longer care about essence, only what others think of me and what this gains me. Life becomes a grand personal image management project, with all efforts poured into maintaining a glamorous persona. As the book notes, they become obstacles to others unable to satisfy their vanity. They hinder others' vitality. Vanity breeds resentment and jealousy. Those craving power are inevitably jealous, intolerant of others' superiority. In relationships, they become controllers, building walls around you, dictating your gaze, actions, and thoughts to strip your free will. At work, they gossip and sabotage behind your back. You may see them as bad, but Adler reveals this badness masks profound weakness. They attack you precisely because your existence triggers their unbearable inferiority. These aggressive types live in constant war, seeing the world as their enemy and responding in kind. But war risks defeat, and for those staking all on winning, one loss can be catastrophic. This is when the second type emerges. Withdrawing players, many once aggressive, learn active attack is too risky and painful after harsh reality hits. They choose a smarter, sadder strategy: escape. They don't fight, they hide. Their first weapon: isolation and anxiety. They cut themselves off from the world, avoiding all contact. Coldness and distance build an impenetrable castle around them, with anxiety as their strongest defense. A chronically anxious person controls and enslaves others through their suffering. Take someone too afraid to leave home. They successfully make family and friends revolve around them, achieving controlling power by appearing weak. Their second weapon: cowardice and excuses. These excuse artists fill their dictionaries with "I'm not ready," "wrong timing," "it's others' fault," "my family ruined me." They forever find plausible reasons to avoid action. Adler insightfully calls this the distance problem. They skillfully maintain safe distance from life's three tasks: work, socializing, and love. Why? It hides brilliant logic. If I never truly, fully try, I never truly fail. Their self-worth remains unthreatened. And if they succeed despite being unprepared, they are geniuses. I achieved what others need both hands for, with one. It's a no-lose psychological game. But the cost? A life forever in preparation, never truly lived, sacrificing all possibility to protect vanity through escape. Thus, whether aggressive bullies or cowering excuse makers, they seem opposite, but are essentially the same: destroyers. Their life goals involve no creation, only defeating imaginary enemies in a fantasy psychological battlefield to prove, "I'm better than you." They waste energy on meaningless internal friction and interpersonal conflict, unable to experience cooperative joy or create real value. This raises a deeper question: if being a destroyer, whether attacking or withdrawing, leads to pain and isolation, what of the builder's path? What's the crucial quality for that healthy road to true happiness and fulfillment? Adler names this quality the cornerstone of his psychology and the ultimate code to understanding humanity and finding happiness. We'll reveal this answer next. So what determines which path one takes? What key quality distinguishes heroes from cowards, collaborators from troublemakers? Adler named this quality the foundation of his psychological framework and our key to life's happiness. It's called social interest. Social interest may sound abstract, like textbook preaching, but it's simple and more practical than you think. Adler first establishes a basic truth: humans are social animals, too weak to survive alone. Imagine a single person, no tools, dropped into a primeval forest. Without lion's claws, cheetah speed, or acute senses, they'd be Earth's most helpless creature. How did humans survive to dominate Earth? Through one thing: cooperation. Division of labor and collaboration compensate for individual weaknesses, creating strength to withstand any beast or disaster. Thus, Adler argues, humanity's greatest traits, thinking, language, logic, reason, evolves not for cave meditation, but to better cooperate and live in groups. This reveals social interest's essence, not lofty moral demands, but a genetic survival law, our innate tendency to connect, belong, and contribute to collective well-being. It centers on expanding self-concern to include broader others. Think of social interest as our social immune system. A strong immune system resists viruses. A strong social interest helps life withstand difficulties. Why? Because facing life's three tasks: work, socializing, love, they see problems differently. Take work. Those with weak social interest view it like destroyers. How prove I'm office best? How shift blame? How work less, earn more? Colleagues become rivals, poisoning their environment and bringing suffering. Those with strong social interests see colleagues as partners. How can our team complete this project? They help and ask for help, succeeding through team success. Even if not top-skilled, they become indispensable, beloved team members. Consider love. A relationship with weak social interest becomes a power struggle, arguing about who's right, who's in control, and who gives more. Home becomes a battlefield. A relationship with strong social interest is true partnership, equal teammates facing life's challenges, thinking, what can we create together, not what can I get? This brings true nourishment and happiness. Thus, Adler made a bold, core claim. One's mental health and life happiness can be measured by social interest strength. Care for others and contribution to society ultimately define personal value. This explains today's refined egoists intelligent, successful, mastering social rules and navigating relationships. They seem popular with thriving careers, yet many feel empty and lonely. Why? They have IQ and EQ, but lack social interest. Their cooperation and friendliness serve only personal gain, not a genuine longing for connection. They seem to have everything, yet lack the most important thing, happiness. Happiness comes not from taking but giving. As the book's ancient quote, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." Those only taking forever hunger, filled with anxiety and scarcity. Those who give and contribute find a sense of spiritual harmony through their acts of giving. Thus, social interest isn't self-sacrificing altruism, but the highest self-interest, understanding that a social being's personal happiness ties inseparably to community well-being. Making others happy reliably brings your own happiness. You may wonder, where does this vital social interest come from? Is it innate or learned? If learned, when is its first seed planted? To answer, we must time travel to our story's beginning, childhood. Next, we'll learn Adler's fascinating, mind-reading technique, decoding social interests' origins through long-forgotten childhood memories. In the previous section, we revealed the happiness code in Adler's thought, social interest. So the question arises, where does this crucial quality come from? To answer this, we must fire up the time machine and return to the starting point of each of our stories, our childhood. Adler believed that all behavioral patterns in our adulthood, the entire script of our lives, were actually drafted in the first 4 or 5 years of childhood. Upon hearing this, you might think it sounds too fatalistic. But wait, Adler's greatest strength is that he not only proposed theories, but also provided us with an extremely sophisticated tool to personally excavate our earliest life scripts. This tool is his original and most fascinating psychological analysis method, early memory analysis. Adler made a striking discovery. The first 1 or 2 things we can remember in life are absolutely not accidental. They are not random, insignificant fragments of memory. On the contrary, they are story samples carefully selected by your subconscious from thousands of childhood events. Why is it that this particular event is remembered? Because this small story is like a movie trailer, previewing the theme of your entire life script in the most condensed and essential way, containing your basic view of the world, your positioning of yourself, and your perception of the kind of relationship you should have with others. Let's look at a truly shocking real case from the book. There was a 30-year-old man who was successful in his career, but deeply miserable. Tormented by intense jealousy, he was about to get engaged but felt full of distrust toward the future, always fearing that his fiancée would betray him. Adler asked him, "What's the earliest thing you can remember?" The man thought for a moment and recounted a memory. When he was about 4 years old, his mother took him and his younger brother to a very crowded and chaotic vegetable market. Because there were so many people, his mother picked him up. But after lifting him, she suddenly realized she had picked up the wrong child. So she immediately put him down, turned around, and picked up his younger brother instead. He was left there alone, feeling scared and helpless in the chaotic, crowded crowd. How did you feel after hearing this story? A bit sad, perhaps. But Adler saw far more than that. He saw the epitome of this man's life tragedy. Note that the focus here is never on judging whether the mother was good or bad. The key is that this memory became a metaphor through which the man understood the entire world. What did this memory tell him? It told him a truth he believed in all his life. First, in this world, he is not the favored one. There will always be someone more important than him. Second, even if he occasionally receives love and attention, it is only a mistake, temporary, and he could be put down at any time. Third, in the end, he will definitely be left alone, isolated and helpless in a dangerous crowd. You see, this tiny memory, lasting less than a minute, is like a seed that planted the root of all his life's pain. It perfectly explains why, at 30 years old and successful in his career, he is still haunted by the fear of not being the loved one. Why, when facing his beloved fiancée, there is a voice deep in his heart telling him, sooner or later, she will put me down for someone else, just like mother did. His jealousy and distrust are nothing but the repeated reenactment of this childhood script in adulthood. This is the astonishing power of early memories. They are like a key that can open the innermost vault of our personality. Now, please also conduct an archaeological excavation of your own memories. Calm down and think, what is the earliest thing you can remember in your life? It doesn't need to be dramatic. It could be just a very ordinary scene, a feeling, or even a smell. Have you thought of it? Good. Now, we can use Adler's method to ask ourselves a few simple questions and try to interpret the trailer of your own life script. First question, in your memory, who is the protagonist? Are there other people besides you? Are they your parents, siblings, or strangers? Are they helping you, ignoring you, or threatening you? This reveals your most basic view of interpersonal relationships. Do you see the world as a friendly haven or a dangerous jungle? Second question, in the memory, what are you doing? Are you an active participant? Are you running, jumping, exploring, creating? Or are you just a passive observer, silently watching things happen to you? This reveals your fundamental attitude toward life. Do you tend to actively meet challenges or passively accept fate? Third question, what is the background tone of the entire memory? Is it bright, warm, and full of sunshine? Or is it grey, cold, or even fear-inducing? This often represents your initial, most intuitive feeling about the world. Do you think life is inherently happy or painful? These three questions are like three searchlights that can illuminate the core settings of our life script. For example, if someone's earliest memory is of a sunny afternoon with parents holding their hands to teach them to walk, then the beginning of this script is probably life is an interesting exploration. Even if I fall, there will always be strong and kind people supporting me. But if another person's earliest memory is of being alone in a dark room, crying in fear, then the beginning of their script might be, I am lonely, the world is full of dangers. I can only rely on myself. Of course, this is a very simplified analysis, but it provides us with a new perspective, making us understand that the reason we are the way we are today, the reason we think, feel, and act in a particular way, has its source in that long-forgotten, seemingly insignificant childhood story. So, what creates the stage on which these childhood stories unfold? What determines the roles we are assigned in the initial stage of the family and the generation of these earliest memories? Adler believed that the setting of this stage is largely determined by a factor that we have no choice in, your birth order in the family. In the next section, we will talk about this very interesting topic and see if, as the eldest, second-born, youngest, or only child in the family, your personality has long been quietly imprinted. I know that when it comes to birth order determining personality, many people think it's similar to horoscopes or blood types, a form of label-based entertainment. But Adler's theory is far more profound and complex than you might imagine. What he wants to say is not that the eldest child must be a certain way, or the youngest a specific type. What he means is that your birth position in the family creates a unique, irreplicable psychological situation for you. The challenges you face in this situation, the resources you have, and your perspective on other family members are all completely different, and it is this situation that profoundly shapes your initial life strategy. Now, let's play an interesting game and see how Adler, the family detective, analyzes the power game within the family. Please find your own position and see if there are moments when you feel, this is exactly talking about me. First, let's look at the eldest child, the dethroned king. As the first child, his life starts with an imperial-level opening. Before the birth of younger siblings, he is the center of the universe, enjoying 100% of his parents' love and attention. He is the law of the family, and his needs are the highest order. But the good times don't last. One day, a usurper, the second child, is born, and suddenly, everything changes. He is no longer the unique treasure. He not only has to share his parents' love, but also take on a new role. Parents will start saying to him, "You're the older brother or sister now. You have to be sensible and let the younger ones have their way." Falling from the peak of power overnight, this dethronement experience will leave a deep mark on the eldest child's life. Precisely because he once had power and experienced the pain of losing it, the eldest child will always value power and order, particularly throughout his life. They tend to be very reliable, responsible, and conservative. They are advocates of rules and guardians of tradition because order and rules allow them to relive the controllable sense of security they once had. So you will find that many managers, leaders in society, or those who excel in the system are often the eldest children in their families. They understand authority and respect it because they themselves were once that small authority. Next, let's look at the second child, the perpetual pursuer. The second child's life script is completely different from the eldest's. From birth, there is already a competitor on the track. There is always the back of an older brother or sister in front of him. His life is a race from the very beginning, and all his energy is spent chasing and surpassing. This unique situation shapes the second child's extremely ambitious and competitive personality. But his ambition is different from the eldest's. The eldest values the stock of power, while the second child focuses on the increment of power. He doesn't care about rules and even enjoys breaking them because the rules are made by the eldest's camp. He is like a revolutionary whose existence is meant to overthrow the previous dynasty. The book mentions the story of Jacob and Esau in the Bible, which is the most vivid portrayal of such intense sibling competition. So the second child in the family is often more creative, flexible, and rebellious. They may become artists, entrepreneurs, or innovators in a certain field. Their life motivation comes from the benchmark running ahead, and they must prove that even if they start late, they can still win. Then there's the most special one, the youngest child, the prince or princess, or the lost lamb. The youngest child's situation is perhaps the most extreme and complex in the family. He has never been a king, so there's no question of being dethroned. He is the youngest treasure of the whole family from birth, and this identity will remain with him until adulthood. There are several runners ahead of him, which can be both a great motivation and a heavy pressure for him. As a result, the youngest child's development often moves toward two extremes. The first is to become a super sprinter. Watching his elder brothers and sisters being so outstanding, the engine in his heart is completely ignited. He will burst out amazing energy and strive to surpass all those ahead. The book also mentions Joseph in the Bible, who, as the youngest son, eventually became the savior of the entire family. In reality, we often see that the most promising and successful in the family is often the youngest child. But there's a second possibility. If the youngest child feels that the gap between him and his elder brothers and sisters is too large, and that no matter how hard he tries, he can't catch up, he may completely give up and choose to quit the race. He'll use being the youngest as an excuse to shirk all responsibilities without a shred of guilt. He will become the most spoiled, the best at making excuses, and the most immature problem child in the family. His subtext is, "Anyway, I can't compare to you, so I might as well not play. You all have to let me have my way and take care of me." Finally, let's look at the only child, the child living in a land of adults. The psychological situation of an only child is a completely different experience. There are no siblings as peers in his world. He is his parents' sole focus from start to finish. He lives in a land of adults, and his competitors are his all-capable parents. What results will this bring? On one hand, he is used to being the center of attention, used to everyone revolving around him, which makes it easy for him to have the illusion that the world should be like this. He may not be good at sharing and may not quite understand the meaning of cooperation because he has never needed to. On the other hand, since parents will project all their expectations and anxieties onto him alone, he will bear enormous pressure. He is always comparing himself with his parents' achievements, which makes it easy for him to develop a strong sense of inferiority, feeling that he is never good enough. Therefore, only children often have a special combination of personalities. They appear outwardly like little adults, confident and even a bit self-centered, but inwardly, they may be very dependent on others and extremely sensitive to failure and criticism. Well, we've analyzed the four most basic family roles: eldest, second-born, youngest, and only child. Now you can think about whether your own growth experience bears some resemblance to Adler's analysis. Of course, Adler also emphasizes that this is just an analytical framework, not a fortune-telling tool to label you. The age gap between siblings, gender, parental favoritism, etc. will all complicate the situation. The significance of our discussion is not to let you find an excuse that this is just who I am and I can't change. On the contrary, it is to help you understand under what kind of game rules your initial life strategy was formed. Only by seeing this clearly can you possibly jump out of the passive family role you've played for half your life and regain the initiative in your life. However, on this family stage, besides birth order, there is another more powerful, more universal, and more controversial force shaping each of us. This force has nothing to do with your birth order, it only has to do with your gender. In the next section, we will talk about one of the most forward-looking and profound insights in Adler's thought, the masculine protest. Now let's talk about a more explosive topic. On the family stage, besides birth order, there is another more powerful, more universal, and more controversial force quietly governing us. This force has nothing to do with your birth order, it only has to do with a label attached to you from the moment you are born, your gender. Think about it. Didn't we grow up hearing things like boys shouldn't cry and girls should be quiet? Where do these words come from? Are they truths? A century ago, Adler gave a groundbreaking answer. He told us that the so-called masculinity and femininity in human culture, as well as the personality differences we think are innate between men and women, are not innate at all. They are almost entirely a social construct, clauses written into the cultural rulebook by the victors after a long historical power struggle. Adler pointed out sharply that men's dominant position is not natural. Countless pieces of evidence show that it is the result of continuous wars between primitive tribes. In wars, men's role as warriors became more prominent, and they eventually used this newly acquired advantage to seize privileges for themselves. Almost all our systems, traditions, laws, morals, and customs prove and maintain this privileged position enjoyed by men. This cultural rulebook distributes completely different scripts to boys and girls. First, let's look at the scripts that boys receive, the heavy mission of becoming kings. In many places, a boy is often more welcome than a girl from the moment he is born. He sees that it is often the father who gives orders at home, a more powerful, authoritative, and mysterious figure. All the stories he hears from society tell him that as a man, He must be brave, strong, ambitious, and not easily show emotions. Most importantly, he must win in competitions, especially gain a dominant position in the competition with women. This cultural pressure is equivalent to putting a heavy suit of armor on every man, and this armor is called masculinity. He is told that he cannot show any traits considered feminine, such as vulnerability, sensitivity, or the need for dependence. Because in this rulebook, being like a girl is the most vicious curse on a man. So he must always stay strong and be ready to fight. But what is the cost? The cost is that this armor is too heavy, so heavy that he cannot truly get close to others. He cannot easily show his true feelings because that would mean weakness. He finds it difficult to establish equal partnerships because his primary task is to maintain his superior position. Just like Don Juan mentioned in the book, he is not in love, he is conquering. He needs to repeatedly confirm that his precarious crown is still on his head with one trophy after another. So what script do girls receive? It is ubiquitous prejudice and the inevitable protest. Adler spent a considerable amount of space revealing how our culture systematically constructs the absurd myth of female inferiority. He mentioned that in history, theologians would even seriously debate whether women have souls. The witch hunts that lasted for centuries pushed this uncertainty and fear to the peak. From Helen in ancient Greek mythology to even the Bible, women are often portrayed as the source of chaos and evil. What would you do when the entire culture tells you that the gender you belong to is inferior, weak, emotional, and unimportant? Adler said that you will definitely resist. This struggle to resist an unfair fate, he called it the masculine protest. Women will use various ways to protest against this unfair rule. Adler observed three most typical strategies. The first strategy is the most direct resistor, whom we can call the warrior. She took a look at this rulebook and then tore it to shreds with a rip. She wants to grab the rulebook that belongs to men. Since childhood, she has refused dolls, wanting to climb trees and fight with boys, competing with them in all fields considered exclusively male. When she grows up, she will become the strong woman who works harder than men in the workplace. She may show extreme disgust for housework, because it symbolizes the female role she spurns. Every success of hers is a loud counterattack against that lousy rulebook. The second strategy is much more subtle and complex, whom we can call the magician. She does not tear up the rules. On the contrary, she studies this rulebook thoroughly and then uses the loopholes in the rules themselves to fight back against the rules. They say women are weak, emotional, and need to be taken care of, right? Very well, the magician will say, okay, then I will turn weakness into my scepter. She shows incredible obedience, humility, even clumsiness and helplessness. But in fact, she turns this weakness into the most powerful weapon of control. Her tears, her anxiety, her posture of I can't do anything, all become a silent order, making people around her willingly take on all responsibilities for her. She completes the most thorough power reversal in the most feminine way. She didn't fight, but she won the whole war. There is a third strategy, which we can call the pragmatic subordinate. On the surface, this kind of woman completely internalizes the society's belittlement of women. She sincerely believes that women are inferior to men, and that only men can do the really important things in life. As a result, she will become the most loyal supporter of male hegemony. She will praise men's strength and demand that privileges be given to them, but this often becomes a means of evading responsibility. Her logic is, since only men can do these important things, they should naturally be done by men. By actively giving up power, she cleverly shirks the responsibilities that come with it. You see, whether it's becoming a warrior, a magician, or a pragmatic subordinate, behind these three strategies is a deep dissatisfaction and fierce protest against the fate defined as inferior. What is the final result? The result is chaos. Relationships between the two sexes, which should be the most intimate dance in the world, have become the most exhausting Cold War. Adler said that our entire love life is poisoned, distorted, and corroded by this continuous tension. Men are cautiously guarding their illusory, culturally granted sense of superiority, while women spend their lives protesting in various overt or covert ways. In this power struggle, the most precious things in intimate relationships, sincerity, trust, equality, and cooperation, all disappear. Adler's views put forward a century ago still sound deafening today. What he wants to tell us is that this is not at all a war between men and women. It is a war between all of us against a stupid, outdated cultural rulebook. True strength is not to play a so-called male or female role. True strength is to take off the armor, put down the magic wand, and stand equally as a complete and real person with another complete and real person. So, after understanding these most hidden scripts in our lives, how should we act? How can we jump out of these unconscious psychological games and transform these profound, sometimes even painful self-cognitions into real, lasting changes? In the last section, we will discuss how to use Adler's wisdom to become the masters of our own lives. After understanding the operation mode of our lives, the most important question is how to change. Adlerian psychology is not a set of fatalism, but a positive action guide. He believes that real change starts with specific practices in daily life. There are 3 core methods in the book that can help us rewrite our life scripts. The first and most fundamental method is called changing your way of asking questions, which is the core technique of Adlerian psychology. When you find yourself falling into a negative behavioral pattern again, such as procrastinating at work, quarreling with your partner, or complaining about life, please stop immediately. Don't ask the question we are most used to asking, why is this happening? Because the question, why, will guide us to look backward and find excuses for ourselves. I procrastinate because my parents pushed me too hard when I was a child. I like to quarrel because my original family was like that. You see, this question will only make us feel justified in continuing to play the role of a victim, whose present is determined by the past. From now on, please change your way of asking and ask yourself the Adlerian, future-oriented question, what is the purpose of doing this? Try again. When you procrastinate, ask yourself, what do I want to achieve by procrastinating? Is it to avoid the possible result of failure and protect my fragile self-esteem? Or is it to silently resist the task I don't like? When you quarrel with your partner, ask yourself, what do I want to achieve by quarreling? Is it to prove that I am right and you are wrong, so as to gain a sense of superiority in power in this relationship? This shift in questions is like a magic switch. It will instantly transform you from a passive, result determined by the past into an active cause responsible for your own actions. You are no longer an actor. You realize that you are the screenwriter. The second method is called practicing cooperation, starting from a small, useless thing. As we said earlier, all problems in life are essentially problems of interpersonal relationships, and the only key to solving interpersonal relationship problems is social interest, that is, the ability to cooperate. But this ability cannot be acquired by reading books or thinking. Like muscles, it must be developed through exercise. So how to exercise it? Adler's suggestion is to start with the smallest things. You don't need to save the world tomorrow. You can start by doing a small, useless thing for the people around you today. What does useless mean? It means that this thing does not bring you any direct utilitarian benefits. For example, take the initiative to pour a glass of water for a colleague who is swamped with work in the company. Take the initiative to wash the dishes after dinner at home without waiting for anyone to ask, and don't expect any praise. On the subway, give up the seat you actually want to sit into someone who seems to need it more. These things are trivial, but when you start doing them, your psychological focus completes an important shift from what can I get to what can I contribute. Every such small practice is a strength training for your somewhat atrophied social interest muscles. When you keep doing it, you will find that your relationship with the world will soften unconsciously. The third method is called re-narrating your own story. Our life script is connected by the stories we tell ourselves about our past experiences. Adler believed that we cannot change the facts that happened in the past, but we have 100% right to determine the meaning of these facts. Please find a core story about your own failure or misfortune that you often tell yourself. For example, this story might be, I failed the college entrance exam and got into a bad university. So my life is just like this, which is a story full of causal fatalism, right? Now please try to re-narrate this story with a new sentence pattern. Failing the college entrance exam taught me to. What did it teach me? Maybe it taught me how to face setbacks. Maybe it made me truly start to think independently about what I really want. Or maybe I met friends or teachers who influenced my life in that bad university. You see, the fact remains the same. Failing the college entrance exam is still a fact, but the meaning of the story is completely changed. It is no longer a judgment that proves you are incompetent, but a stepping stone for growth, the beginning of a hero's journey. Changing your questions, changing your behaviors, changing your stories, these are the three most precious gifts Adler left us. Finally, what the book Understanding Human Nature wants to convey is that its purpose is not to make us become cold psychologists who can see through everyone, but to cultivate a deeper, more compassionate empathy. It is to make us, when seeing that aggressive colleague, think that under his armor, there may be an extremely inferior child, to make us, when facing that constantly complaining family member, understand that his complaints may be his only way to protect himself and avoid failure. It makes us understand that behind every seemingly hateful destroyer, there is a frustrated soul worthy of understanding. Understanding human nature is not for judgment, but for reconciliation. First, reconcile with our own complex, contradictory, and flawed inner self, and then, with this understanding, reconcile with this equally imperfect, but still worthy of our love and contribution to the world. This is Adler's wisdom and the ultimate gain we hope this journey will bring to everyone.